best late-night conservative talk show in America, Sackheads Radio. And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk than Sackhead Sean and Sackhead Clint. And we're working on the immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work here, too. For those who are tuning in around the world to the best in late-night conservative talk, Sackheads Radio.
Sackheads Radio.
And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Freedom Fest 2015, Las Vegas, Nevada at Planet Hollywood. We're in the final day of Freedom Fest. It's been an amazing event. Mike Lee, Donald Trump spoke today. There's still a lot of hustle and bustle. All the booths are open. All the people are walking around. And I have sitting next to me Coleman Alderson. I didn't do it. I thought I was going to do it. Author of Mountain Whispers, Days Without Sun. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. How are you doing, Sean?
I'm awake, considering how much has been going on here at Freedom Fest, which is just the coolest event. This is our first year here. I absolutely love this event, but there's so much information to take in. There's so many things to see. There's so much to participate in. I'm exhausted. I'm not going to lie. Yeah. But I'm already looking forward to it next year. Now, tell us about the book, Mountain Whispers. We talked a little bit about it off air, but one of the things I said is you were explaining the book to me, and I was reading about it a little bit. It's not a scary idea. This is one of those things that 10 years from now, a lot of this stuff could be very, very pertinent to real life. So tell us a little bit about the book and why you decided to write it and where you want to go with it, what you want people to take out of it.
Well, as you know, Sean, there's a lot of contention around this issue of global warming, climate change, climate disruption, et cetera. And we're heading into a season in December where they're going to have a meeting in Paris all about it. And it's really a hot, pardon the term, hot button issue.
It's a very hot button, unlike our oceans.
Yeah. And as a result of, I'm from Central Appalachia. And, it used to be flyover territory. As long as people were pumping out the energy, everything was fine. And then a few years back, it started to be like a target-rich zone for carpet bombing with regulations. And a little graphic here, but I'm serious. If you go into this area of Kentucky, West Virginia, Ohio, and visit some of the smaller towns that were all about mining, basically, and the businesses that were supported by the miners, it's you see refugees, and there's a diaspora of people that are leaving. There are miners that are going off from their families to work mines that are like hours and hours away, and they stay away all week, come home on the weekend. So it's really rending the fabric of an entire society, an entire culture.
Well, and I think that's something that gets lost when we have the argument. Obviously, we're talking about the coal mines, which is a production of electricity unlike no other at this point. And as much as, I always phrase these arguments when people start talking about, we have to get rid of the coal. What's the plan B? Because, okay, that's fine. If you really think coal is that bad, let's have a conversation, but have a plan B. Before you run everybody out of business, before you destroy all these lives, before energy costs go through the roof, let's have a plan B. And have the argument that now the coal industry, the advances in technology have made coal so ridiculously efficient that you're really destroying an industry that doesn't... I equate it to what happened with steel in Pittsburgh and the steel industry, and I use that a lot as overregulation that single-handedly destroyed one of the greatest things that our nation produced. And I look at coal to be not far behind that.
Oh, absolutely. And right next to coal will be gas, and right next to gas will be, whatever. It could be paper.
Right.
But tracking back to what you were saying, I'll give you a visual. Whenever you see some article having to do with climate change and they show the so-called smokestacks,
yes,
that's actually white vapor, steam. And if you really study, you'll see they've taken pictures at sunset or sometime to make that look like a black cloud.
Yes.
And to me, that's very emblematic of how things are being twisted. The same with the terminology of, instead of saying carbon dioxide, which when we think about that, what do you think of when I say carbon dioxide?
Well, exhaling. Me personally.
I've been working hard all day converting oxygen into carbon dioxide.
I am one of the best at that, by the way. If I do nothing else well, the conversion of O2 to carbon dioxide is one of the best things that I can do.
Yeah, now let me flip it over a little bit, and I say carbon. Carbon.
Oh, everyone hits the emergency button.
That's right.
Let's
Black.
eject. We're in trouble. Black
Dirty.
lung. The canary's dying. Yeah, all these horrible things.
Nasty.
And then when you tell people, you realize we're carbon-based animals, right? The word carbon is not necessarily descriptive of anything that's going on. It's just a keyword.
Yeah, and I know we're still on the scientific side. I haven't delved into the book itself, but what we're discussing is basically factual, and it's really, it's wonderful to know these things. And the thing of it is, when you're somewhat skeptical of this environmental green thing, is that you have to do your homework a lot harder. I mean, you just don't drink the Kool-Aid or buy the whole storyline, hook, line, and sinker. You really have to delve in, and that's facts and figures. And so my approach, it started about 6 years ago. I did the research. I checked into a lot of the background, who is financing these global environmental movements and all. Very interesting, and I won't get into that. But I found a certain helplessness. I couldn't do anything. There's a lot of refutation science-wise and all that out there, but I thought, what if I deploy some writing skills that I happen to have and create a story about people that would be at the end effect of this tidal wave of regulations, mandates, restrictions, all of that. And, you could serve up California as a good example.
Oh, trust me, I know.
But what I basically did, I said, we're on this trajectory, so I'll just grease the skids, and we're going to, fast forward 30 years hence, and focus in an area that I'm familiar with, which is Central Appalachia. So I kind of do a setup here with people are being drawn into population centers because it's easier, it's sustainable. That's a key word. It's sustainable. We can manage the population. We can reduce our carbon footprint, all of that good stuff. If people
all of the resources are right there that you need, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
And, we'll have farms, we'll have jobs, everything will be all great.
It's utopia.
There it is. And I created that, and I started to put the dis in the utopia, which I sincerely believe that a lot of high-minded and bright and sincere, altruistic folks that really, and I believe in a green, clean planet and clean water, clean air. Let's not do what we did in the 70s. Let's, all of that.
You must not, and here's why, and this is what the left is going to tell you, is because you're speaking out against overregulation of an industry that has been demonized, however erroneously. So you must not love any of that. You must not enjoy hiking. You must not want your environment to be clean. You certainly don't enjoy trees in the outdoors. And of course, I'm being sarcastic, and I'm proving the example is that's the extreme they go to, right? As soon as you disagree with every sort of EPA or green regulation, you must just hate the environment. They just love to throw that back at you.
Oh my! What a broad brush stroke that is. Well, actually, I am. I started out very in college, very liberal. I was all for, and this dates me a bit, for Governor for McGovern, and a few other liberals, and definitely for Jimmy Carter. I thought Jimmy was liberals. A good fella. Yeah. So. But as I got into business, I guess that was the turnaround. When you realize, spending half your time doing the payroll and then the regulations. I've also had a career as a landscaper. I've planted thousands of trees, thousands of bushes. Probably I've probably made my mark in terms of reducing my carbon footprint there. And I'm a developer as well. And when we developed a subdivision, we bought our own equipment so we could go in and select cut the trees. So it wouldn't be like cleared out like a football field. And I feel that we're very sensitive. We love nature. We love being out in it. The thing about this, though, is, and I take great exception to the way we're being pushed into the sustainable, the green, all of this with the regulations. It's like there's, first of all, a crisis that's been created, and to me that's kind of the focus. You've got to gin up a crisis so that you can bring the government in.
Yeah.
And it's the same kind of thing that happened in the 70s when they were saying we're going to have global cooling. Well, the solution's the same. It's always the same. You get
I one of my favorite arguments that I had, even now when everyone talks about global warming and the ice caps are melting and et cetera, and I'm like, 1979 we were supposed to go into the ice age again. They started announcing that was coming. It was in Time, Newsweek, all the big scientific mag, and I'll tell you right now, I didn't see one glacier. So I don't know if they were wrong or if it was just in a different part of the country that I wasn't in. But I don't remember seeing any glaciers whatsoever. And when we talk now, more and more, one of the bonuses is, and I'm going to get back to the book, but we're in a good discussion about something that we deal with on a regular basis.
Sure.
You have more and more climatologists, one out of MIT just recently, but all over the world, who are turning around and saying, well, this global warming thing, it's not what they're saying it is.
Exactly. I just, last month, I attended a conference up in D.C. Put on by the Heartland Institute. I'm sure you know them. Mm-hmm. It's the International Conference on Climate Change. Mm-hmm. And, there are guys from, Princeton and Stanford and MIT. And there's, I think Michael Crichton said it best, that consensus is the refuge of scoundrels.
Yes.
And when somebody starts talking consensus, they're reaching for your wallet. So, but let's track back to the reason that I got into this. I decided maybe a story rather than we're going back and forth on facts and figures and all that. So what if I painted a picture of 30 years in the future of what life would be like in my area I'm familiar with, Central Appalachia. You have the city, as I described before. It's all, everybody thinks it's going to be the greenest thing, and I actually call it Progress City.
That's a perfect name.
And then you have what the people, the administrators in Progress City, refer to as retros. And another name is retrograde or primitives. And these are the people that have stuck to their homes and their lands in the mountains. And a lot of these folks are self-reliant and self-sufficient. You have the hardy Scotch-Irish stock, and by God, nobody's going to tell them what to do. And we have a very storied history about that.
It's very true.
And in fact, anybody that's a fan of NASCAR appreciates the history of where that was derived.
Absolutely.
So my characters are derived. The heroes, we have one guy that's a 3 tabs Spec Ops fellow. He's aging out. He's kind of washed out. He's had a lot of tragedy. He's torn up with some traumatic memories and nightmares and things. Not necessarily all about war, but so he is somewhat revived by having essentially a spirit similar to like a Sancho might accompany Don Quixote, but he makes a little compact, and this actual, it's a ghost of an actual historic figure named Sid Hatfield. And Sid Hatfield was the famous guy that shot up the detectives in the Matewan massacre. If you ever see, I think, is it John Sykes? I'm trying to remember the guy's name. I believe it's John Sykes. Made a movie called Matewan. It's very much biased toward the unions and all that, and the bad coal operators and all that, and they were pretty bad. But anyway, this guy Sid Hatfield is the guy that kind of saved the day by shooting up the detectives, and it was bigger than the OK Corral, by the way.
That's funny. Yeah. Again, another story we haven't heard. Maybe we could talk about that at a different time.
Right.
Because that'll be a story unto itself.
Right. Well, so this is one of the guys. The other hero, actually, or heroine. Can you say heroine?
You can.
They're all heroes?
With an E at the end.
All right, there you go.
We're not slamming heroine. We're talking about she who is a hero.
Yeah. It's a 12-year-old girl. she's writing in a diary, and the diary happens to be a vintage iPod that her grandmother bequeathed to her on her birthday. And she is kind of like the linchpin. She's, sort of like the Greek chorus that's writing about the thing and tying it all together, and telling of her experiences as being, it's really cold. It's really, the sun seems to have disappeared. She hasn't seen the sky for ages. Nobody's seen the sky. There's something going on with the atmosphere that's turning things colder. So she's writing about that. She's also a refugee. She describes herself as a fugitive, as an outlaw, because she went into town one time, and the powers that be in this area want to have people registered, and that basically means to be chipped with an RFID chip. Which is, of course, for everybody's safety and convenience.
Right, it just makes their life better. It's
Yeah.
all about them.
Yeah.
It's all about them. We actually have a chip in Sacco, so we don't lose him. But that's only
That's a
because
good
he
thing.
wanders off sometimes. So
That's a good thing. And these scenarios kind of blend in with the control factor, blending in with the environmental things. They've taken over most of the lands. There's a thing called the Wildlands Project, but even today you're seeing things like areas declared as monuments.
yes,
And
can't
just
touch it.
Bam,
Can't touch it.
That's
Historical societies all over the place do that. They declare
Right.
everything they want to be historical. Then it takes literally an act of God to change it.
So it's a hardship for those that remain. Thankfully, they do have skills, but for instance, if they're to hunt legally, they have to register, and they have to register their arms, and they have to get a certain permit to do that. And we have characters back then that are saying, well, I remember the day when they used to let out school for us to go hunting in the
Right.
fall, There's an interplay with these characters in the mountains and then those in the city, where eventually they will come together and encounter each other. Some will be friendly, some will not so friendly encounters. But the portrait of those that are in control is that while the regular city folk are experiencing hardships because things aren't working out. You need parts to supply the wind turbines. Solar's kind of out, but you need parts to supply the wind turbines and make things run and all that. And they forgot that you need fossil energy to help create a lot of these parts.
What?
Yeah, really. You can't make steel using a wind turbine.
No. It's weird. It's
Yeah,
almost
it is.
like there's stuff that we just have to deal with.
Yeah. Well, and it's a sort of a back and forth thing. Of course, the people that are in charge obtain all the amenities. Nothing really changes. In fact, they get more and more amenities. They can travel. They get the water. They get the to keep pets, for instance. It's all just kind of a tiered hierarchy in the city. In the outlying area, it's just kind of like the Wild West. You have clans, and this one veteran figure begins to pull people together. So I think, by the way, this is the first in a trilogy, maybe a quadrilogy, but it's all in the can, so to speak. It's just a matter of bringing it out and in installments. And I think that people will enjoy the characters. I think they'll enjoy the storyline. I tried to make it as graphic, and I know we've gotten into a lot of exposition here, Sean.
Mhm.
But it's not really. You tell the story and you show the people at the effect of, and let people draw their own conclusions. And I would hope that many of the readers would realize this is serious. This could be coming to a neighborhood near me,
And you and everyone else around here.
and begin to pull their heads up and start looking around and saying, "There's something going on that we have to address here." Again, I'm not against the environmental measures that actually are practical. We need to take on our energy issues in a measured, in a rational and practical way, not just rush headlong like we are. And that's my big deal. That's
Well, and when you have an executive branch that is out of control
Yeah.
and doesn't answer to anyone, but can create these false non-laws that are actually enforceable laws, even though they have no power to do so, it's really a level of tyranny. People always go, oh, you can't say that. No, it is. I mean, the EPA is a level of tyranny. They don't have the power to make laws, but yet they can have all these regulations that involve criminal crime, or be charged with the crime and then criminal prosecution, as well as civil, and nobody oversees them. They just get made, and it's not until that they're challenged in the Supreme Court and then push back, and then all they do is change it slightly and go forward again. So I'm looking forward. I'm really excited you wrote this. I hope people read it and really pay attention and look towards the future and look at the way we're doing things now, and like everything else, use your own judgment, do your research. Coleman, where can people find you?
I'm glad you asked that question. Actually,
it's almost like I've done this before.
I know. Wow, that's amazing. It's Mountain Whispers, Days Without Sun is the title. My name is Coleman Alderson, and the book is up on Amazon. We just came out on April 15th, the day
awesome.
of significance.
Yeah.
And it's up on Amazon in both paperback and in Kindle form. I also operate the purveyor of a blog called littleredpill.com. You Matrixy folks out there, I'm sure, would be familiar with that.
Yeah,
one.
not the little blue pill. That's a totally different website.
No.
Different website.
No,
littleredpill.com.
Exactly. And we have articles coming up every week. This past week we put up one about how the wind turbines are slicing and dicing endangered bird species.
Well, which is weird because I thought we loved the birds.
Oh, do we love the birds, you know? That tune, Turn, 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 is still a classic, right?
We just don't want to see them chopped up in wind turbines.
Right.
Coleman, thank you so much for your time. I'm sorry Sacco screwed up the schedule earlier, but I'm glad you were able to sit down with us, and I really appreciate it. Everybody check out Mountain Whispers, Day Without Sun by Coleman Alderson. Sir, thank you.
Total pleasure.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America, Sackheads Radio. And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk than Sackhead Sean and Sackhead Clint. And we're working on the immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work there, too. For those who are tuning in around the world to the best in late-night conservative talk, Sackheads Radio.
Sackheads Radio. Sackheads Radio.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America. In America.
Into the silo.
And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.